My name's Courtney Gilbert. I'm the curator of visual arts at the Sun Valley Center for the Arts, and the exhibition that we have up right now is called Sleight of Hand. Sleight of Hand is part of our fall Big Idea project, looking at surface and reality, authenticity, and authorship. And it features artwork by 6 artists, all of whom use the idea of the copy in their work in different ways in order to consider ideas about value in art, what makes a real work of art, and how we judge authenticity in the art world. One of the artists in the exhibition, Mark Landis, for years actually made forgeries of artworks. He was a prolific forger who never sought financial gain from his forgeries, but actually donated paintings to museums around the country. For Landis, making forgeries was not only a way of working out his own skill as an artist, but a way of being sort of a philanthropist, despite the fact that it caused lots of problems for the museums that he donated works to. Landis is the subject of a recently made documentary called Art and Craft that we'll be screening as part of this project. Conrad Brauer is an artist who teaches at the University of Illinois and has a practice that he's built around making handmade, hand-painted wooden sculptures of everyday objects, from consumer objects like VHS tapes to what we have on display here, which is a project he calls Untitled Subscription, and there are 10 sculptures of Art Forum magazines from 1969 to 1970. They're intentionally imprecise, but beautifully made sculptures that we've placed on a folding table that he also carved and painted, with a little subscription card also made from wood. Everything's made to exact scale. He's really interested in the idea of the distance between artifice and reality, and I think that comes out in his work. Vik Muniz is an internationally known artist who grew up in Brazil. We have on display here 3 pieces from a project he did called Verso, where he, over the course of 6 years, visited major museums around the world and made sculptures of the backs of famous paintings, from the Mona Lisa to Picasso's Woman Ironing. What's interesting, as he says, whenever an expert is trying to decide if a work of art is authentic, they begin with the back of the painting, where the stickers from different museums where it's been exhibited are shown, and maybe the framer's markings. You can look at the hardware and see if it's to the period. You know, while it might be easy to replicate the front of a painting, it's really hard to reproduce the back. So this project is a commentary on how we judge authenticity through provenance, or the history of a work of art, and how that history gets written into its back. Michael Wolf is a German photographer who divides his time between China and Paris. And the photographs that he makes in China are usually studies of China's economic and social structures. And he did a whole project a few years ago called Real Fake Art. Real Fake Art is a series of portraits of these artists working in China holding some of the reproductions that they've made. Since the beginning of its communist regime has had art academies that trained highly skilled artists who were able to reproduce imagery very easily. And at one point, these artists would have been employed making socialist realist paintings. Now they are employed making copies of well-known paintings and family photographs. You can send them any image you want and they can reproduce it in oil paint. Haida is a New York-based artist who's also an art critic and has written really thoughtfully and beautifully about kind of the challenges that artists face in trying to make a living through their work. He's best known for his text-based paintings, which range from everything from to-do lists to lists of his enemies to lists of things he's learned in the art world. And they're really, you know, funny, kind of sardonic takes on what life is like for artists and how to get ahead in the art world, and how much of getting ahead in the art world often depends not so much on your artwork, but your ability to create a persona. Haida and his dealer decided to commission copies of some of his text-based paintings from a company in China, where artists created handmade, unique copies of his original paintings. So we have on display here a number of those reproductions. One of the things that's interesting about them is that because these Chinese painters weren't used to reading and writing in English, they had a hard time reproducing some of the words. So there are these kind of interesting misspellings embedded within the paintings. The final artist in the exhibition is Richard McMann, who is based in Florida, and since 1989 he's been working on a project that he calls the Mini Museum, which is essentially a recreation of the history of art in miniature, from the Venus of Willendorf and cave paintings at Lascaux up to the 21st century. Richard is fascinating because he's not just an artist, but he's as much an art historian as an artist. He's interested in recreating images and objects that are not only well known, but also reproducing work by artists who are underappreciated or lesser known, or sometimes lesser known works by really well-known artists. The museum itself numbers well over 1,000 objects, and on display here we have a large selection from the overall museum, which we've installed in our project room. I hope everybody will come in and see the exhibition. It is a great opportunity to think about what defines a work of art, how to look closely at art and what you can learn through close looking. And then also it's a chance, I think, for everybody who knows even a little bit about art history to see really beautiful images with which they're already deeply familiar.